Welcome dear students for another segment of the grade 11 mathematics class of St. Peter's College, Colombo 4, Nikombo branch. Today our lesson is going to be on compound interest. It's a part of percentages, what we have done before. We have done the part of hire purchase the previous week on percentages, and today we are going to do the second part of percentages, and that is going to be about compound interest. You have already learned about the simple interest concept in grade 10, and now we are going to see what is the difference between the simple interest and the compound interest. Simple interest is calculated on the principal or original amount of loan. That is, now if you borrow a loan of 10,000 for a simple interest rate, every year when you're passing, every year the interest will be added onto the principal amount, that is 10,000. In simple interest, let's take you're going to deposit 10,000 in a bank in simple interest in case. Then what happens is the interest for every year will be added on the amount which you deposited at the very beginning. It won't change. But in compound interest, it is going to be compounded annually, probably yearly, probably quarterly or monthly. But what happens is this interest is charged on the amount that is already in the deposited account. That is, compound interest is calculated on the principal amount and also on the accumulated interest of previous periods. That means the original amount, and let's take at the end of the first year you have been added to a certain amount of simple interest interest also. Therefore the compound interest for the next year will be added to the total amount you have by the end of the first year. For an example, let's say first you deposited about rupees 10,000, and after the first year is over, at the end of the first year, let's say there is an interest of, let's just say 2,000 added to it. That is, by the end of the first year, you will have 12,000 in the account. Now the compound interest will be added to this value, not to the principal amount. So by the end of the second year, let's take another 2,000 is added to this. So then you will have 14,000. And on the third year, by the end of the third year, the amount, the interest will be calculated onto this amount and not on the principal amount. But in simple interest, if you are going to deposit about 10,000, or let's take whatever the value you are going to deposit using the simple interest concept, for every year, let's take in the first year 2,000 was added as interest. So at the end of the first year you will have 12,000. But for the second year again you will have 12,000. The reason is interest is calculated on the principal amount, right? Even in the third year, another 2,000 will be added to the original or the principal amount. But in compound interest, once after the first year is over, the total value you have in the account, to that value only they are going to charge the other interest for the next year. That is the difference between simple interest and compound interest. In simple interest is calculated on the principal or original amount of the loan. Every year with the passing years, if you have deposited this amount, the interest is going to be calculated only to the principal amount for every year. That means every year 2,000 will add. So at the end of each year you will have the same amount left. But in compound interest, the amount or the interest is added to the value that is previously in the account. That is, 10,000 was your principal amount, the amount that you are going to deposit. After 1 year, let's take there is an interest of 2,000 added to it. Then by the end of the second year, by the end of the first year, you have 12,000, and for the second year, interest will be added onto the whole amount you have here. Then you have 14. For the next year, then compound interest will be added to the amount you have as 14,000. But in simple interest, it is only about the first value that you are going to deposit. to that value only they will add interest every year. But here, year by year, for the value that has been already added, they will add an interest. So they say compound interest is calculated on the principal amount and also on the accumulated interest for previous periods and can thus be regarded as interest on interest. That's true. When you count to 12,000, already an interest is added. The first year interest is added. But when you go to the second year, to this value with the interest, another interest will be added. Okay, that is why they say it is generally considered as regardless interest on interest. Next, compound interest is based on the amount of the principal of a loan or deposit. An interest rate which accrues in conjunction with how often the loan compounds. Typically, compounding occurs either annually, semi-annually or quarterly. Generally, if you consider a compound interest, it is based on the amount of principal of a loan or deposit. That is a principal amount. It can be a loan amount, it can be a borrowed amount, it can be a deposited amount. Okay, it is depending on that amount. And the interest rate from an institution, from a monetary institution, we don't know what sort of rate they might give you, but according to that rate, that's, for example, let's take there's a compound interest rate of 12% or 6%, it will differ right, from time to time. So on the interest rate and on the principal amount, compound interest will be based on, right, which accrues in conjunction with how often the loan compounds. Typically, this loan compounding happens either annually, that means for a whole year compounding happens, or semi-annually, that is half an year, or quarterly. You know the meaning of quarterly years, right? So that is how this entire year compounding happens. It can happen either annually or it can happen either semi-annually, that is half an year, and also quarterly. Compound interest is valuable for those who make deposits because it is an additional income for them the longer the deposit sits without withdrawals. See, compound interest is valuable for those who make deposits because it is an additional income for them. Because compound interest is an additional income. Now, if I just deposit 10,000, by the end of 2 years in a monetary company who pays an compound interest of rupees 2,000, I will have about 14,000. But I have only deposited 10,000. That is what they say. It is very valuable for those people who are making deposits, right? Because it is an additional income for them. The longer the deposit sits without withdrawals, without withdrawing the money, the longer the money is kept in the account, more interest and more benefits from compound interest rates. It is valuable to lenders because it represents additional income earned on money lent. For those people who are giving money as for interest rates, those who give money to people, that is an additional income for them as well, because the person whoever borrows the money should pay back a big amount when it is compounded, right? So that is the reason compound interest is important, or that is the reason why compound interest is valuable. So very simply, the summary of compound interest is that interest is charged on the amount that is previously collected during the period of time. That is, for first year, if I have 10,000 and there's an interest of 2,000 being added during the second year, by the end of the second year you have 12,000. And for the third year, this 12,000 is used to calculate the interest. Okay. Second point is compound interest is valuable especially for those who make deposits and also to the lenders, because it is actually a representation of an additional income. Okay, right. For maths, we don't require the entire meaning of compound interest or how they are being used, but it is important for you to understand the concept under compound interest when we are going to do our questions, right? Now we are coming to what is important for us, that is the mathematical side of compound interest. So let's take the question they have given you. If a person takes a loan of rupees 10,000, that means the loan amount is rupees 10,000. See, I have marked it, right? It's better if you can mark these points while you're doing the question, so that you don't have to look at the question again and again, because whatever the things that are required for you should be marked beforehand, right? So if a person takes a loan of rupees 10,000 at a compound interest rate of 10%, okay, so the compound interest rate they have given as 10% per year, so it's an annual rate they have given you. Calculate the total amount. You have to calculate the total amount required to repay the entire loan in 2 years. The time has been given for 2 years. So I am actually going to explain you method 1, that is a longer method of doing it, but there is a shorter method also. I will explain it to you in the next part. But still, when you're going to simplify questions using compound interest, it's better if you know both the methods without only sticking to the formula. So let's see what this method has to tell. So first of all, we have to calculate the interest for the first year. That is, by the end of the first year, what is the interest that has to be added? So see, interest for the first year is equal to the loan amount into the interest rate. The loan amount into the interest rate. So the interest rate is 10%. They have given it. So the interest for the first year we have found as 1,000. Now I told you for the second year, by the end of the first year, what happens? Loan amount at the end of the first year is going to be 10,000 plus the 1,000 interest. That is altogether rupees 12,000. First of all, we found the interest that has to be paid in the first year. That is going to be 10,000 into 10%. That is 1,000. So by the end of the first year, the loan amount, this is a loan story. So it's a loan amount. What we have to do is, we have to take the principal amount and add the interest we calculated for the first year. So that is going to be rupees 11,000. Now, when you are calculating the interest for the second year, you have to use this total 11,000. That was the amount that has to be paid by the end of the first year. That amount should be taken to calculate the interest in the second year. So, interest for the second year is going to be 11,000 multiplied by 10 over 100. That is the annual rate, the compound interest rate. So, by the end of the second year, the interest is 1,100 rupees. Therefore, the total loan amount at the end of the second year, the story is based on 2 years. That is why we are going to find only till the second year. So, by the end of the second year, he has to pay 11,000. That was the previous principal amount. That is the principal amount at the end of the first year plus the second year's interest. That means he has to pay a total of rupees 12,100. I'm going to explain again. If a person takes a loan of rupees 10,000, that is the compound interest, that's the principal amount, the borrowed amount, at a compound interest rate of 10%, right? That is the compound interest rate per year. That is, this rate is calculated annually. Calculate the total amount required to repay the entire loan in 2 years. So we are talking about 2 years. So the loan amount is rupees 10,000. That is the amount he has borrowed. That is given. The compound interest rate is 10%. Those details I have taken from the question. Now I have to find the answer. So first of all, I have to see for the first year, what is the interest that has to be paid. So interest for the first year is equal to rupees 10,000 into the compound interest rate, that is rupees 1,000. Then by the end of the first year, the total loan I have is going to be the principal amount plus the interest for the first year. Principal amount and the interest for the first year, that is rupees 11,000. Now when I am calculating the interest for the second year, I have to use this total amount which was already there by the end of the first year. So that is going to be interest for the second year equals loan amount by the end of the first year, that is 11,000 into the compound interest rate. Then you get rupees 1,100. Now this is the interest for the second year. So by the beginning of the second year, you had, that is by the beginning of the second year means by the end of the first year, you had rupees 11,000. To that value, you have to add the second year's interest. That means by the end of the second year, you have to pay a total of rupees 12,100. That is the answer for this question. Therefore, this man has to pay rupees 12,000. He borrowed only 10,000. But now he has to pay rupees 12,100 by the end of the second year, by the end in 2 years. Okay, so this is the longer method, or this is the step-by-step method of doing the question or thinking about the question. Or we can easily use this formula to find the compound interest, that is the total amount. A means the total amount you have to pay in the given period. Okay, so you can use this also. The principal amount, it's P times 1 plus R over 100. R is the rate, the percentage or the rate, and T is the time they have taken, or 2 years or 3 years or 4 years or 5 years, whatever the time they are giving will be taken as years. Okay, right. Let's take how we are going to apply this formula into the question, which is easy, where you can get the answer very easily without using all those steps. You can use the formula, but still I recommend you to remember both the methods. It's important in some questions to understand the procedure of the question as well, the step-by-step method as well. So I recommend to know both the methods. This is far easier, but you have to remember the first one as well. So this is the formula: A equals P times 1 plus R over 100 times T. So in the question we got the principal amount was 10,000, that is given. So 1 plus the rate we received was 10%. So this is, they have given you as 10 over 100 to the power 2, because the time was given as 2 years. That is the reason I have put 2 here. So then 10,000 into 100 times 1 is 100 plus 10 is 110. 110 over 100 into 110 over 100. Why 110? You know, this is sort of a mixed number. So 100 times 1 is 100 plus 10 is 110. Twice of it, because it's the power of 2. So it goes as 110 into 110. Now I have to simplify this formula. Then 0, 0, 0, 0. 4 zeros can be cancelled. So 110 into 110, still the answer you get as 12,100. Using the steps you get the same answer, even using the formula you get the same answer. The formula again a bit. So the principal amount is 10,000, 1, that is the one here. 10 is the rate they have given, that is 10%. This 2 is given as the 2 years time, that is why I have mentioned 2 on that. Then A, the total amount you have to pay within 2 years is equal to 10,000 into 100 times 1 is 100 plus 10 is 110. You have to square it, so 110 over 100 into 110 over 100. So altogether, if I take the answer, when I simplify it, still I will get rupees 12,100, which is the interest I have, which is the total amount I have to pay by the end of the 2 years, or the person who has borrowed the loan have to pay under 2 years, after 2 years. Okay. So again, if I just go through, this method is far easier, but you need to remember this as well. This is also very important. The step-by-step method, or in the exam, you can use more easily the formula. Next, let's take the second example. Amal invests rupees 50,000 for 3 years. The time is 3 years. The principal amount is 3 years in a fixed deposit account, which pays 6% annual interest compounded yearly. Okay, so Amal has invested rupees 50,000 in an account for 3 years, which pays a 6% annual interest compounded yearly. That means compound interest. Nimal invests rupees 50,000, the same amount, in an account which pays 6% annual simple interest, same percentage, same principal amount, but the difference is Amal invests in a bank which is giving him a compound interest account in a compound interest, and Nimal is investing in an account which is giving him a simple interest, right? So calculate the amounts received by Amal and Nimal at the end of the 3 years separately. So we can now compare actually which method of investment is more advantageous, whether it is the compound interest account or the simple interest account. So let's see. Right. So this I'm going to use the longer methods. So then the total amount received by Amal, who he invested in a compound interest account, okay, at the end of the first year is going to be at the end of the first year. at the end of the first year is rupees 50,000. That was the principal amount, that's the amount he deposited, into 106 over 100, because I am taking the total amount, I am not taking interest and then adding. That is why I have taken 106, that is 1 plus 6 over 100. You have to take the, if you are calculating the total amount, as it is, or first without calculating the interest, you have, whenever you are taking the fraction, you need to take by adding 1 to the given percentage. So that is 106 over 100, that is equal to 53,000. That is the total amount he has received by the end of the first year. In the previous question, we found the interest for the first year first. Here we are finding the total amount for the first year, first of all. Then total amount received by Amal at the end of the first year is going to be principal amount into the percentage. But when you take in the percentage, I told you in compound interest, you have to add 1 to the given percentage if you are calculating the total amount as it is, without using the interest first. Then that is 53,000. Then I am calculating the total amount received by Amal at the end of the second year. So this was the amount that was there at the end of the first year. Take that and again compound it using the interest rate, then I will get the value for the second year. Now take the value for the second year and compound again to find by the end of the third year what is the total amount he has. I told you in compound interest, we are not only talking about the principal amount. Principal amount is not taken to calculate the interest for all the 3 years. But what we do is we take the principal amount and we calculate the total amount for the first year. Then using the first year's value, we compound it to get the value in the second year. Using the second year's value, we compound it to get the value of the third year. So by the end of the third year, Amal will have a total of 59,550 and 80 cents. Right? At the end of the third year, he will have using the compound interest account. Now, if you consider Nimal, he invested in an account with the same percentage, with the same principal amount, but with a different concept, which was the simple interest. So here, interest received by Nimal at the end of the third year, we can calculate together, because you know for simple interest, that is I equals PRT over 100. That is the normal formula we use for calculating simple interest. So I have taken principal amount, that is P into R, that is the rate. For this you don't add 1 because this is a simple interest question, see, right? It's a simple interest concept, so you don't add 1 like this. This 1 is added only when you are finding the total amount for the compound interest concept. Here you can just take the percentage, that is 6 over 100 into 3 years, PRT over 100. So by the end of the 3 years, he has received an interest, simple interest of 9,000. Then total amount received by Nimal at the end of 3 years is going to be, okay, so he had 9,000 as an interest, his principal amount was 50,000, so he has a total of 59,000 by the end of the third year. Now if you see, the person who went through compound interest, he has an amount of 59,550 and 80 cents. But the person who went through simple interest has only 59,000. So it completely shows that this is more valuable, right? So again, if I just explain you very simply and very quickly, first we are going to find the total amount that Amal has at the end of 3 years. That is basically the person who has invested in a compound interest account. So he has invested a principal of 50,000. So 50,000 compounded interest rate, that is 106 over 100. How do you get 106 over 100? That is only when you are taking the total amount directly, right? That is 1 plus the given interest rate. Okay, that's how you take 100 times 1 is 100 plus 6 is 106. Compounded, then this is the amount he will have at the end of the first year. Take that amount for the second year as a principal and compound it to get the value in the second year. By the end of the second year, how much? Take the value by the end of the second year to calculate the value for the third year, compound it, then you will get how much value he has by the end of the third year. Then we can take, that is Amal's story. So he has 59,550 by the end of the third year. If I consider Nimal, who has invested in a simple interest account, his interest I have calculated, interest receipt I have calculated, I can calculate using I equals to PRT over 100, right? Because it is a simple interest question. Then the principal amount is 50,000 into 6 over 100, that is going to be the rate into the time. Time is 3 years. Then I have 9,000 as the total interest by the end of the third year. Then the total amount received by the end of the 3 years for Nimal is going to be 9,000 is the interest, 50,000 is the principal amount. The addition of this will be his total amount by the end of the third year. So if I consider the amount that has been received by Amal and Nimal separately, Amal's investment has more benefits than Nimal's because he has invested in a compound interest rate. Generally, compound interest questions are given using share market as well. Your questions in the papers have all been designed whether it is valuable to invest in a share market or whether it is valuable in investing in an account with a compound interest. So there can be questions collaborating with these two concepts in the exam paper, right? So before we finish, we have to do the same question, especially for the person who has done it in a compound interest rate. We have to use the formula and see whether we still get the same answer. See, total amount is going to be, the principal amount is 50,000 bracket 1 plus 6 over 100 to the power 3. We just take it without going to those 3 steps. We just take directly. So that is 50,000 into 106 over 100 3 times because it is compounding 3 times. So 106 over 100 into 106 over 100 into 106 over 100. The final answer still, if you simplify this, you will still get the answer as rupees 59,550 and 80 cents. Okay. So the same answer is given to you by the formula as well. So like I explained to you previously, the compound interest questions can be given under 2 parts. Maybe that can be given with the collaboration of the simple interest concept, or it can be given with the collaboration of the share market concept. So now you can start to do the questions under compounded interest. This is not, now the structure of the question can change, but remember the values we are going to put to a formula or the idea we took through the steps is remaining the same. So it will change with the times and the compounding of quarterly or yearly or semi-annually. So that is all under compound interest. So we'll see you next week with the other lesson. Till then, thank you and God bless you.